Welcome, dear listeners, to Satanists Nextdoor. We're your hosts, Lilin
and Tommy Levine.
Whether you're an open-minded, curious onlooker or a fellow Satanist seeking camaraderie, our goal is to share our personal experiences and delve into the intricate tapestry of Satanism in our daily lives, occasionally inviting other guests to share their unique perspectives, leaving no pentagram unturned. We'll explore how our beliefs shape our views on society, dive into struggles and triumphs we've encountered, and reveal the humanity that unites us all. So grab your favorite chalice and join us on this captivating journey. Satanists Nextdoor is ready to peel back the curtain and offer you a glimpse into our world, one captivating episode at a time.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Satanists Nextdoor. Today, we're going to be talking a little bit about Project 2025. What's that? What's Project 2025, you say?
Well, it's all the things that your nightmares about extreme fascism are probably made of. But I would like to put a little disclaimer out there, like we often do for many things. If you are someone that tends to be easily drawn into extreme conspiracy theories, if you tend to fixate on lots of negative stuff, if these things tend to really work you up and cause a lot of anxiety, this may not be the best topic for you.
Yeah. So in the past, you've probably heard us either mention on our podcasts, or if you follow any of us on social media, talking about Project Blitz, the things that the conservatives have been doing for many years to, kind of put in this religious agenda, I would say. I would say Project 2025 is kind of like Project Blitz on steroids.
Yep.
Like massive doses of steroids.
This sort of thing, this is put out by the Heritage Foundation, by the way, and that's a really interesting organization. If you haven't heard about them, I do suggest a bit of research to better understand their roots. But they have been putting out, we'll call them manifestos like this, since the 80s, at least, probably before, but the first one I was able to find was from the 80s. A couple of really interesting quick facts. I decided to go through and look at the things that are mentioned most in this document by conversational topic. So women, not a big mention, 4 times. LGBTQ plus LGBTQ, 7. Christian, 7. God, 8. As many times, interestingly, as Fauci. 8. Church, 9. Transgender, 13. Ideology, 21. Woke, 35. It's all woke. Father, 45. Marriage, 46. Reagan, yes, that old chestnut, 70. Traditional, 79. Women, 92. Religious, 101. COVID, 122 times. Freedom, 126. Family, 152. Abortion, 199. Trump, 312, was beat out yet again in numbers by Biden at 375, with America topping it off at 1,319.
Yeah, I mean, since I have a marketing past, I kind of look at these like keywords.
Mm-hmm.
If you're trying to do SEO or ranking or anything like that, or you have anything marketing-wise, it's sort of based on personas and keywords. And these are some pretty concerning keywords in what's supposed to be how to run the government document.
Right. This would essentially be what we would like to accomplish should the Republican Party gain control again of the White House based on the Heritage Foundation's recommendations. And you can look at this document. There are some areas to find Project 2025's mandate for the coming presidency. And there's a lot of interesting people who helped to create this. Tons of them.
It's like a who's who of religious extremists.
Yeah, the fruit salad of life guy's in there.
Yeah.
He didn't mention Oreos or fruit salad, but he's in there.
Boy. And so this thing's like over 900 pages, right?
920. Of course, you have to take in the stupid footnotes and all the other crap stuff in there, but yeah.
Yeah, so... but the really, really concerning, because you can look at this and there's all sorts of areas that are...
I think we could talk about this solidly for a month and still not cover most of it, but we're not going to do that to you.
Yeah, but I mean, the really concerning areas for a Satanist,
Or the secular community in general.
The secular community in general.
Hell, even some of the Christian community.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was going to say. I mean, you can find areas in here that are concerning for almost anyone, unless you are a radical extremist. Our audience, obviously, mostly Satanist, or people that are curious about Satanism and things like that. So I think we, maybe focus, at least this first time we talk about it, on some of these areas that would probably mostly affect our community.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff, and our community is vast.
Yes.
And covers a lot of different kinds of folks, so...
Yeah, I mean, they really go out of their way in here to attack women's rights, to attack the LGBTQ plus or LGBTQIA plus community. Sorry, and traditional marriage. Again mentioned in here, abortion.
Yeah. Well, and it's really concerning if you are an individual, a black individual, a person of color, immigrants. There's a lot of concerning things in here for you as well, especially the erasure of history, especially pertaining to topics like slavery, which we've already seen them trying to rewrite. That's a very diverse, rich history that we cannot afford to dismiss in our country, and to erase it is essentially to erase those marginalized voices and the things that they've had to fight to get where they are today. So that's incredibly concerning. Yeah,
I mean, when you don't teach history, it's bound to repeat. I mean, this, it's a saying that has been around forever.
Yeah.
Yet, we're trying to erase areas of history because it makes them uncomfortable. Or they don't like the light that it shines on them. And that's just wrong.
Yeah.
I mean...
And I don't say things like this lightly at all, and I'm not at all trying to marginalize the individuals who this document has caused irrevocable historical harm. But when you look at manifestos like this, it is not unfair to bring the comparison to harmful documents like Mein Kampf. If you don't know what Mein Kampf is, I do suggest, again, going to your friendly research, finding 3 reputable resources, and then researching it from that perspective. But it was essentially Hitler's manifesto for creating what ended up becoming one of the worst historical regimes that existed. It's not alone, and there was other horrible atrocities created through such documentation, but the reason why I say that it has those kind of tones to it, and what concerns me about it, because it's in that direction, that vein of thinking, right, is it talks a lot about nationalism. It talks a lot about perceived threats, things like the Biden administration's, rule of law, and they talk a lot about these perceived threats that the weakened state of things because of that. The anti-Semitic conspiracy theories essentially sprinkled all through here. They talk a lot about traditional values, which can definitely be dog whistles that survived through lots of historical commentary that kind of talk a lot about racial purity and, again, anti-Semitism. It may not say it outright, but when you look at those words, that is traditionally what it's talking about. Does it specifically have the same genocidal intent that particular document did? Not outright, definitely no. It's not the same intensity, it's not the same language. That was absolutely blatant and horrific in nature. It does still have tones of racial supremacy. When you read the document, front to back, you'll see that theme is still present. And there are other elements that have a lot of overly broad generalizations that could definitely be compared. But the things I want folks to recognize and focus on is the way that they talk about things like immigration, citizenship, gender policy council. They have a gender policy council they discuss in here. These are concerning things. Promotion against abortion, comprehensive sexual education, gender-affirming care. These are things they want to deal with this gender policy council.
Yeah, I mean, they basically talk about deleting the terms sexual orientation and gender identity, diversity, equality, inclusion, gender equality, gender equity, gender awareness. I mean, it's just a blatant attack. So, yeah, I guess they toned it down a little bit, in comparison, but it's pretty damn, it's pretty damn obvious what they're going for here.
Yeah. I mean, they start out with this whole, like, what is our goal? To restore the family as a centerpiece of American life and to protect our children, dismantling the administrative state and returning self-governance in the American people, defend our nation's sovereignty, borders, and bounty against global threats, secure our God-given individual rights to live freely, what our Constitution calls the blessings of liberty. Yeah.
I mean, so if we're only promoting... So basically, unless you are a white Christian man...
And even then, there's some concerning language, but sure.
Yeah. I mean, unless you're a white Christian man in here... this is really concerning, and as you mentioned too, there's even some concern in here, even if you are. There's definitely some things. So it's almost like if you're not a white radical Christian man, then
and that's it exactly.
I mean, so they go everything into pornography needs to be illegal. And the messed up thing is I was reading through some of this was like pornography and transgender were mentioned sort of side by side.
Oh, yeah.
In a way, kind of leaning into the fact that, trans is pornography, and it's not, but that's the message that they're trying to send in here. That's the dog whistle, that they're using to scare people.
Well, sure, because they're claiming that anyone who educates on any kind of identity, sexual identity, gender identity, whatever you want to phrase it as, they're essentially saying that type of education, regardless of age, under 18, is teaching of pornography. So they go into this whole thing about free speech and property rights and sexual liberation and child welfare, and then they say it has no claim to First Amendment protection, the pornography industry, which, again, free speech, First Amendment.
Yeah.
Its purveyors are child predators and misogynistic exploiters of women. Now that I find incredibly hypocritical to hear from this particular group, but that's fine. Their product is as addictive as any illicit drug and as psychologically destructive as any crime. So we're saying pornography, and I agree. I'm not going to discount the fact that there are people that have pornography addictions.
Yes.
That is a thing that definitely happens.
People that have addictions to, just about it. There's gambling addictions,
Right, but as someone that believes that sex work is as viable as any other work, that deserves the same protections as any other job, there is that caveat that some types of pornography expand on the fantasy aspect a bit much and can create unrealistic expectations, especially for younger people, but that's a different issue entirely. I don't think pornography should be illegal. I think, like everything else, it should be something that's discussed and the dangers, explained. We don't ban yet fiction books from people, and fiction gives you a very, skewed view of the world depending on the type of fiction you're reading.
Yeah.
So, I don't think I can live in space, so,
Not yet. Give Elon Musk a little bit more time.
I wouldn't live anywhere he had anyway. The oxygen is now 99 cents per minute.
No shit. You get up there, it's free, and then all of a sudden they'll start charging you for it. And they go everything into adoption reform. And kind of state how many children, 400,000 children across the nation are awaiting lists in foster care and 100,000 awaiting adoptive families. But that they want to make it so that you cannot adopt unless, and they specifically call it out in here, a child should have a married mother and father. So, okay, so again, we're getting rid of birth control. We're making abortion illegal. So we're going to have a bunch more kids that are going to go into the system. But those kids can't move out of that system unless there is a married mother and father willing to adopt them, or the way I read this, even take them into foster care.
Well, the interesting, and I hate to use that because interesting to me is a positive.
Yeah.
The wording in here that is concerning is the constant attack on the LGBTQIA family structure, right? Because
Yep.
you have same-sex parents, wonderful people with kids. Lots of them are active in foster communities. Lots of them are active in the adoption communities, even surrogacy communities. There's tons of people in the LGBTQIA community who utilize all of this as ways to grow their family, right? So when you look at this on the face of it, it's definitely trying to dismantle their right to exist and to have a family, essentially lumping them in with predators. And it's not just the LGBTQIA community, right? Going back to the pornography thing, I mean, did you read what they wanted to do with anyone that allowed any type of education on that at all? They specifically said, and I quote, "Educators and public librarians who purvey it should be classified as registered sex offenders, and telecommunications and technology firms that facilitate its spread should be shuttered." Folks, this is talking about free access libraries, if you think about it. This would take away the right of free access libraries to provide educational material that covers topics that conservative extremists find upsetting.
Yeah, I mean, they specifically went into, sex ed should not include, they said somewhere in here, it was like, it shouldn't include like inclusive list or, basically it shouldn't include anything educational.
Right.
Sex ed should be abstinence.
Oh, yeah.
And that's
right over here. Delaying sex to prevent pregnancy are virtually ignored in terms of priorities, yet these goals can reverse the cycle of poverty in meaningful ways.
Yeah. So if you get pregnant, all of a sudden you're the reason for poverty.
I mean,
I don't know.
Don't make me make sense of this.
Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, just kind of, as I'm skimming through this, it's just like so many areas.
Yeah, the adoption reform was gross.
Jump out at you. Pro-life measures, promote pro-life workplace accommodations. I thought at one point the Republican Party was a party of small government.
Well, that's what they're still saying.
Yeah, they keep saying that, but this isn't small government. This is authoritarian. This is like the how-to guide on how to create an authoritarian theocracy. That's not small government. That's big. You're putting the government into everything, every aspect.
They threw, I don't even know where. I'll have to look at some point. We'll have to revisit this, but this was really jacked. The average length of same-sex marriages is half that of heterosexual marriages. Pardon me? Protect faith-based grant recipients from religious liberty violations and maintain a biblically based, social science-reinforced definition of marriage and family.
Yeah. Again, how does that play into...
Now, this is what I was talking about right here. Social science reports that assesses the objective outcome for children raised in homes aside from a heterosexual intact marriage are clear. All their family forms involve higher levels of instability, financial stress or poverty, and poor behavioral, psychological, or educational outcomes. I'm sorry, what?
Yeah. And the problem is that, just about the entire ideology now on the right has moved this way. So, as somebody who's been a Satanist for a long time, I've known Satanists on both sides of the aisle. And in fact, I've supported certain bills on both sides of the aisle in the past. Back when
there was sense.
They were sense and the people were sane. To me, I just wonder, how do you, if you're still sort of right leaning, how do you vote in a way that's going to put this sort of manifesto in that is directly targeting your way of life, your friend's way of life, family members' way of life? even if you're straight, let's say, Satanism, even LaVey Satanism has always, promoted LGBTQ plus, they were always pro. And so you read this and it's like anti anything I can think of that would align with Satanism in some way, shape, or form. So I don't know.
Yeah.
That was my little rant on that.
No, it's a good rant. There's a lot of really weird stuff. I was thankful for the fact that even though I'm going to Okay, I'll try not to. The HMRE program grants should be available to faith-based recipients who affirm that marriage is between not just any two adults, but one man and one unrelated woman. Thank goodness.
Oh,
Thank
my
goodness.
God.
Oof.
Wow.
Thank goodness.
They actually had to put unrelated
Unrelated
in there.
woman. I contest my little shitty commentary was faith-based and unrelated is not necessarily the same thing. Oof.
Wow.
Yikes.
This is like
Unrelated.
This is just nuts. I mean, and the scary part is this isn't like, oh, maybe, possibly this. I mean, this is like their plan. This is what they want to implement.
Yeah, there was some other crazy stuff in here. There's, like I said, 920 pages of what the hell. But, they want to have a reproductive health care access task force.
A gender policy council.
Uh-huh.
Suggesting revoking Gender Policy Council and its associated policies, arguing against the promotion of abortion, comprehensive sexuality, education, and gender-affirming care. Instead, it advocates for a position focused on life, family, and issues. Is it just me, or did it start pouring outside?
It is pouring. So.
Okay. I was like, where the... All right. Well, we've got a downpour going, too.
It's God. God's mad at us.
Yeah, that's it. He's flooding the earth. Holy shit, you found the rule book. You're putting it out there early. I'm flooding the earth. That's it.
Wow. So there was another section that started talking about the heart of the conservative promise to resolve and reclaim the role of each American worker as the protagonist in his or her own life, to restore the family as a centerpiece of American life. The role of that labor policy plays in the promise is twofold: give workers the support they need, blah, blah, blah. Well-paying and self-driven careers that restore the family supporting job. Family supporting job. The Judeo-Christian tradition, stretching back to Genesis, has always recognized fruitful work as integral to human dignity, as service to God, neighbor, and family. That is literally what is written word for word.
So this is like child labor.
Not this one. This one is strictly trying to... There is something about child labor in here, too.
Yeah.
No, this one is talking about providing the ability for family-supporting job as a centerpiece of American economy. So read that as... Now, granted, they did say that the American dream, the American promise is that American workers are the protagonist in his or her own life, but then they talk about family supporting jobs. So I want people to think about the fact that what they're really saying when you boil down and read through this is that they want to have jobs where a single individual, being the man, is able to support the family, so the wife, being the woman, can stay home.
Yeah. I mean, and again, this is sort of what... Yeah, I mean, they mentioned this in some tea leaves when, they put in Dobbs.
Yeah. Well, now I did read into that because they do talk about discrimination crap that, prevents certain... prohibiting people from being able to stop pregnant people from working, but then they have some weird stuff about, making sure that doesn't unduly affect a job, But they did talk about the gender discrimination policies that were put in place, prohibition against sex discrimination. They had added transgender individuals and prohibiting them from being able to work. Employers can't just fire someone simply for being homosexual or transgender. So that was a safety that was put in place by the Biden administration. And so they want this to be removed. It should be strict Bostock's application of sex discrimination protections to sexual orientation and transgender status in the context of hiring and firing. The president should direct agents to withdraw unlawful notices and guidance purporting to apply Bostock's reasoning broadly. Okay,
so basically they're saying they want employers to be able to fire,
rescind regulations prohibiting discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation, gender identity, transgender status, and sex characteristic, and should direct agencies to rescind regulations interpreting sexual discrimination provisions as prohibiting discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation, gender identity, transgender status, sex characteristics. Yeah.
Okay.
They focused their enforcement of sexual discrimination laws on the biological binary meaning of sex.
Didn't they have something in here too about against surrogacy? right? Because they
so
kept
the
talking about
preference in
biological
this. Yep, the
parent.
biological parent should be the one that children are placed with more often than not. There is also some concerning language that implies, again, we're talking about now very clearly. I'm reading between the lines here, but they do talk a lot about family reunification and rights for fathers. They did not exclude rape or incest situations. So they do seem to be talking about reunification for families that are composed that way. There was no call to avoid reuniting families of violence, families of abuse. It was really talking about trying to reintegrate families. They even talking about people that receive financial support for child support. The goal would be to bring these families back together. Right.
And I mean, that goes along with a lot of noise that I've seen online lately from the Christian nationalists that, they're kind of promoting this whole divorce is a bad thing, no matter what, whether the woman was abused or not.
Or the man, because men get abused in marriages too.
That's true. Whether the partner was abused or not, the goal should always be to put the family back together. And it's like, well, no, fuck no. If there's an abusive person in there, why the hell do you want to put that abusive person back in the family to abuse their partner, to abuse their children, to teach their children that abuse is okay, that's the way to go about solving problems.
Yeah, I don't disagree with there was a mention in here about educational courses for parents, for men specifically, who did not have a father figure, and to help them to grow that skill if that's something that they wanted to do. I don't know that it was structured in if that's something they wanted to do, but I don't think that it's wrong for either parent, because I myself grew up in a broken family, as they call it, I really didn't have either parent.
Yeah.
But, it was hard to develop some of those parenting skills that you need without having really good examples to have modeled some of that off of. So it isn't something I'm opposed to. However, again, the Judeo-Christian mention in pretty much everything overarching makes me very concerned on what that curriculum would entail.
Yeah. I mean, again, I have no issues with educational courses to help people become better parents.
Yeah. Yeah, the robust accommodations for religious employers, you mentioned that. They talk about the Sabbath being a rest day. God ordained the Sabbath as a day of rest, and until very recently, the Judeo-Christian tradition sought to honor that mandate by moral and legal regulation of work on that day. And so here we are talking about taking away work on God's Sabbath day, default to Sunday for employers with the sincere religious observance of the Sabbath at a different time, Friday to sundown, Saturday sundown. So I mean, yes, they are including other religions because, in the Hebrew faith, when you very strictly devout, you'll stop what you're doing at a certain day of the week, even to the point some extremely devout families even turn off the electricity. I mean, it is good to see some of that in there as well, because again, anti-Semitic stuff tends to run through this, so I do like seeing some of this.
Yeah, but still, it doesn't belong in government.
No.
The
protections. I agree that overall, I think that all religion should be given a religious protection, right? So,
agreed.
Calling out certain aspects of those protections as examples, in my opinion, is fine.
As long as they do the protection across the board.
Right, which is not what I'm seeing. But again.
Right. Yeah. And that's the problem that we so frequently run into with things like this when, Christian nationalists and those try and push bills through, is they are only focused on the Christian religion, and they do not take any other religion into account. And very clearly in our Constitution, it's kind of like an all or none sort of setup. We're not a religious nation. I don't care how many people stomp their feet and jump up and down and throw a temper tantrum. The United States is not a Christian nation. Period. End of story. It was set up that way on purpose. Right.
Well, I mean, that's why they often will point to the Declaration of Independence, because it does mention God and that, but that's not the Constitution. So.
Right. So, but even in that, it mentions God.
Right, but it's speaking more broadly of a nature. It's more open to interpretation. It's not the Judeo-Christian absolutism that you're seeing in a lot of this.
Yeah, so you can take God and pass that across many theocratic religions. Obviously, Satanism wouldn't be one of those.
I mean, you could apply God to Satanism, right? Because we can be our own God. And so, again, God is a term that's overused and oversimplified to specifically denote to Christianity. But really, God can be whatever you decide it is.
Can, definitely. But I know that's absolutely not what they're talking about in here, because they specifically talk about Judeo-Christian.
Yeah.
Bring it back to Judeo-Christian values.
Oh, here we go. You were talking about this earlier. So, hazard order regulations. Some young adults show an interest in inherently dangerous jobs. Current rules forbid many young people, even if their family is running the business, from working in such jobs. Gosh, that sounds smart. This results in worker shortages in dangerous fields and often discourages otherwise interested young workers from trying more dangerous jobs, right? Because we want them to live. With parental consent and proper training, certain young adults should be allowed to learn and work in more dangerous occupations. What exactly are we talking about here? This would give them a green light into training programs and build skills in teenagers who may want to work in these jobs.
And Jimmy, could you reach your arm into the wood chipper there? I think it's a little bit stuck. Could you just sort of wiggle it around and see? Oh, shit, Jimmy. Oh, fuck. Oh,
Good thing we can have more.
Good thing we can have kids in dangerous jobs.
I don't mean to diminish, people have lost children because of crap like this.
No,
and that's
I know,
why these rules are in place.
That's exactly it. That's why we have these rules in place, because at once upon a time in America, this whole make America great again sort of shit that they're pushing. Once upon a time in America, they didn't have child labor laws. And kids went to work in dangerous places, and kids died. Mm-hmm. And some smart politician said, you know what, that's probably not a really good idea. We want our children to live. And so how about we do this? We make it illegal for children, one, under a certain age to be compelled to work. And two, children under a certain age can't work in dangerous jobs.
Yeah. For those of you following along at home who would like to know what page that crap is on, you can find it on 595 to 596.
Holy
Yikes.
shit.
Then we have this beauty: restore the family as a centerpiece of American life and protect our children. The emphasis on family as a centerpiece could be interpreted in various ways depending on the specific policies or recommendations. This could have implications for LGBTQ families, you think, single parents, or non-traditional family structures.
Yeah, I mean, they use this non-traditional family in here so many fucking times. It's just like, oh, okay. So again, and I mean, they call it out blatantly. What they see as a traditional family is a married couple with a mother and a father. And when they say mother and father, they're talking like, they look at it as a cis biological mother father. That's the way that they're presenting this. This is the family structure that they believe and they want to push into America. So
yeah, they talk about securing our God-given individual rights to live freely. That's obviously very concerning for anyone advocating separation of church and state. So again, you got that very vague but very direct language in its own right. Moral and foundational challenges and Reagan-era references sprinkled everywhere.
Yeah.
They talk about culture wars, which, again...
They go into big tech and children. So basically what this pretty much boils down to is they want to make it illegal for kids to use social media. And I would say kids would include teenagers as well. Fundamentally, the way that our society... I mean, I know my kids, or our kids, they use social media all the time to talk to their friends who are in other states and other countries. It's opened up the world for people in general to have friends in other cultures, to learn about other cultures, to be like, holy shit, did you know over here this is what they do? And not be forced to have to pick from bully A or bully B at the school to be their friend. It's just opened up the doors. But they look at it as this bad thing. They present it as like this evil sort of thing, almost like the devil's coming in through your computer.
Well, I mean, they've literally said certain shows or TV, movies allow the devil into your home. I mean, and if you think about it, the party of small government is talking quite frankly about using the government to restore the American family, right? If you read through it, that's repeated over and over again. They talk about using government power, tax codes to restore traditional view of the American family. Again, that word traditional. And depending on the policies, we're talking about things that will affect, again, LGBTQIA families, and other family structures. There are grandparents raising kids, grandmother, grandfather, there are aunts, there are uncles, there are, people raising children in very different, we have a very different idea of a family in 2023 and hopefully still in 2025. But, these points that they keep pointing to in here, they're definitely anti-LGBTQIA. They're definitely anti-women. They're anti-immigration.
Yeah. If you're an immigrant, very much, it is.
Yeah, there's really concerning sections in here on immigration, and they talk a lot about the ideal candidate, the ideal applicant. They're really emphasizing younger, conservative-minded people. And it's very concerning because, you've heard the negative terms they use for people that are here as immigrants. They're drug dealers, they're drug addicts, they're violent, they're this, they're that. And it's really upsetting to me when you start seeing this other language about, just essentially just deport everyone that doesn't fit this ideal and screw it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that goes along with...
dump.
Yeah, something Dump said today or yesterday that he would have the biggest deportation in history. And, I kind of mockingly said, okay, what are you considering an immigrant? Because unless you're indigenous,
you should all be leaving.
Technically your family is an immigrant family. You just...
Don't go there. You'll get into a giant argument with someone that's been here for generations.
Yeah. So...
schools and parental authority. That's another one that really pisses me off because they're trying to push this whole parents are the end-all be-all when it comes to their children and what happens in school unless you're secular or you're pro-LGBTQIA or of the LGBTQIA community, or if you are someone who believes in the importance of actual historical accuracy, or a person that comes from a community, a Latino community, or a Black community, where you want, representation and history.
Well, I would say that, they're pushing this in this document at a national level, but we can say we've seen how this works at a state level because Texas already implements this. They've already implemented this sort of, the parent is, okay, no, the parent really doesn't have the choice because if I want my children to learn something different, I don't get to have that choice. What you're saying is, you mean the white Christian nationalist parent gets to choose what the Texas education is taught, and this is going more national with this document.
But the issue with Texas in particular, and this is something that we've talked about slightly before, but when it comes to the educational division, we have the largest population of schools and school children, so our textbooks are the model used throughout the nation.
Yep.
So when
Texas
we start,
sets the mark.
Yeah. So, and again, we're like in 40 something at the bottom of the freaking list for education. So that's scary. But when you look at it, what we're doing here, the way we restructure the educational material affects everyone. They talk a lot in this document about dismantling the administrative state. That's a really big fancy way of saying that they want to reduce the size and scope of the federal government to align with their supposed original constitutional intent. That means conservative approach to government. They want to remove various policies and protections that support community, women, family, secular individuals. I mean, there's a lot of... This is just overarching crap. It's just crap upon crap upon crap.
Yeah. I mean, and you see them now trying to turn... abortion as a national
It's
issue.
states' rights.
So first, when they overturned Dobbs, it was we bring it to the states, but that didn't work out quite the way that they wanted because yes, they have some states like Texas and those that are run by dominionist or their legislators are heavily heavy Christian nationalists, and they just pass the laws. They don't give us a chance to vote. In Texas, we've never had the chance to actually vote
other
on
states,
abortion.
have different ways of approaching things that are added to dockets for their states.
Right.
We do not have those same rights here in Texas. So another really interesting thing they talk about in this document a lot is elitism versus, the common individual, the common sense. I have a hard time with that. Look at the list of people who created this document. It's right there at the top. You can read through. Some of them have bios, who they are, like Mr. Carson. They are
Fruit salad of life.
They are elite people. I mean, I don't know why everyday individuals seem to buy this particular load of dung that they're being served, but the elitism is the people that are making these laws. The elitism is, unfortunately, the people in political power on both sides. It's not just, Republicans, conservatives, Democrats, liberals. It's an array of individuals from different parties. We only have really two, but even if you add in some of the independent representatives and other smaller factions, you really have a giant majority of really wealthy individuals who aren't affected by their healthcare laws that they put in place. They're not affected by wage laws. They're not affected by Social Security. They're not affected by the things that they're putting out there on the average everyday person. And so they are the elite that they're complaining about.
Mm-hmm. I've never understood why people tend to flock towards or what the hell am I looking for?
Idolize.
Idolize these. They're like, whether it's Trump, Elon Musk, who just throw a name out there, throw a fucking name out there, and they're like, oh, they just really understand us. No, they don't. They have never, ever in their life had to say, do we get to order food tonight, or should we go fill our prescriptions, or I don't know if I can afford to get you that milkshake with this. That never before in their life have they had to do that. So how the hell can they understand you? They don't. They say they do, and you're dumb enough to believe them, I guess, in some cases, but they don't, know.
I think that's been a long-standing issue, right? I mean, you can go historically way back, and they've idolized just the wrong kind of people. And obviously, people of intelligence, regardless of education, right, regardless of status, should be recognized as useful individuals. So, great, recognize the intelligence. But what we've done is we've venerated fame and wealth over intellect. And, that's one of the reasons why, unfortunately, Donald Trump became so popular, because he was there at the, I'd say maybe tail end of the, what would you call it? The reality TV craze where everyone's voting on who they want based on who's most exciting. I don't know how he managed to become that, but he was really someone that a lot of people related to. Let me tell you something. This is not a blue-collar guy. He does not understand the factory workers of America. He does not understand the average American. The man had, gold shitters. This is not your everyday person. He doesn't know what everyday life is like. I think at one point he said you have to have an ID to buy things at the grocery store. Where the fuck are you shopping?
Yeah, I don't know.
So these people are out of touch. And this is something I hate about politics in general. We are not represented by people that understand everyday average people.
Yeah.
So this talks a lot about elitism, but I hate to say it, they are very much the elite. They talk a lot about China as an adversary. I find that concerning on a lot of fronts. So when we saw the pandemic happen, a lot of people used a lot of derogatories that lent towards China. That was so gross. And so we created a lot of really horrible situations for Asian Americans and Asian people in general, and this just continues that same thing. And we have a history here, for some of you that maybe don't know, where we had internment camps for Asian Americans. We actually took away their livelihoods, ruined their lives, upended their jobs, their families. They lost their homes, they lost their businesses, because they were put in camps during the whole World
War II.
And these people lost everything. They were upstanding community members. They were citizens. Everyone looked at them differently because of what was happening and because of the way that they were then painted as villains.
Yeah.
And this is, again, doing that same thing. I find it incredibly appalling.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff about World War II that isn't taught, but, history is written by the victors. So,
Yeah, well, we imprisoned people just for being Asian.
Yes, we did. Yeah, I mean, so obviously we're not going to cover this whole thing in a single episode. Hell, we could probably do a series and still not cover this whole thing. Like we said, it's over 900 pages, but it is extremely scary. Mm-hmm. Unless you are a white, extreme Christian man, this is an incredibly scary document that has a lot of people and a lot of power pushing it. And depending on what happens in 2024, this could become our reality.
Well, yeah, and it's important to recognize these directions because they have slowly been implementing these things anyway. Mm-hmm. It wasn't just Roe v. Wade being affected with Dobbs and all that. There was other things that they've been doing over time when it comes to religion in school, when it comes to parental rights. There are so many different things they've been working on over time that they've chipped away at. So this is a bigger, broader plan, if they were able to be voted in, that we should know. Again, the Heritage Society is very important and very involved, but it is not all of the GOP.
Yeah. And this is why, I think it's important as a Satanist to be an advocate, to go out there and make your voice heard, because if you just sit around quiet and you're not involved, this shit gets through, and it might get through anyways, but at least if it gets through, you can say, I voted against it. I spoke out against it. I tried to stop it.
And only you know what that means for you. We're not telling anyone how to vote or who to vote for.
Nope.
But when it comes to religious freedom, I just want to state that, religious freedom is a principle, means that any individual or any community has the right to practice, express, and change their religion or belief without fear, persecution, or discrimination. They have the right to practice, to change, to explore whatever beliefs that they want. When religious freedom is framed or implemented in a way that centers predominantly around the values or beliefs of one particular religion, like we're seeing here with Christianity, it raises concerns about whether the principle is being applied equitably for everyone. And in this case, I don't believe that it is.
No, it absolutely is not. It absolutely, positively is not. And that, again, there was times in my life that I used to consider myself much more of a centrist. Mm-hmm. I would vote for both parties. I would vote for, all of that. But I cannot bring myself personally. Again, I'm talking about myself personally here. You vote for whoever the hell you want. But I personally cannot vote for an ideology that, if it were up to them, would, basically put me against the wall and be done with me. Or take away my freedoms, or take away my children's freedoms, other people that I love and care for. I cannot put those two together. No. For me, it's just hopefully, I hope at some point in time our parties can come back together and get rid of these extremists, and we can go back to talking about the fucking budget.
Oh my God, now the budget again. Yeah, I would be greatly appreciative if we could actually come back to some reality and stop living in whatever the hell twilight zone it is we find ourselves. We're really, at this point in time here in 2023, we're looking at the potential of a government shutdown because we are being held hostage by right-wing nut jobs.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, yeah, again, I really do, wherever you fall on the political spectrum, I do think it's important. You should at least look for this Project 2025 document, and you should read through it, because you should understand what is on the way. Mm-hmm. What possibly could be on the way, so you can at least make an informed decision.
And be aware so that you and your community can do things, take steps to actively combat this overreach of government control, this infiltration politically of all of our lives, because we are this country. We are the country, not the politicians. And as individuals, we have the right to live freely, really live freely, and make sure that we are providing an equitable future for as many people as possible. There is no perfect world. I don't believe in a perfect, it's a fallacy to think that there is a perfect place.
Yeah.
But we can do a lot to make it better. And it starts with each of us as a member of our community doing the things we know we need to do to accomplish that.
Hell yeah. Hail Satan.
Hail Satan.
Have a good evening, morning, night, wherever the hell you are. And we'll talk to you next time.
All right.
Hail Satan.
Hail Satan, guys.